I drive because I love my children on the bus. I started off driving to be at home with my children on snow days and holidays. And in that 24-year time that I've been with the county, I have enjoyed every child on my bus and the families and the connections I've met.
Why do I drive? I drive because of the students. It's those students that make my day. You make relationship with these students, and even after they graduate from high school, they'll come up and give you a hug and let you know that they appreciate you and what you did.
I love driving a school bus because I had a school bus driver that I admired, and I always watched her, and she was a great person, and that challenged me to be a good bus driver. And I was a trainer for 2 years for Roanoke County, and I loved it. I enjoyed showing people what I do.
This is a family. We consider ourselves part of the transportation family. And once you become part of the family, you stay part of the family. We learn about each other's family, we support each other, we're there for each other, and we have fun while we're doing it. We get to help the students, we get to be there for them and support them.
I drive the school bus because I wanted to have some adult interaction as a stay-at-home mom. I wanted to get out, and driving with Roanoke County, I have great students. I've enjoyed this nearly 20 years now, and I also like being a part of the community, and they trust me with their kids, and I enjoy being with my students.
I enjoy driving. The best part about driving the school bus is the children that I pick up every day.
Why?
Because they keep me younger. I'm 78 years old. They keep me younger.
I retired from public service, and I stayed at home and did all my honeydews, and basically I got bored. I wanted something to do. My wife was a teacher, so this allowed me to have money and time off during the summer.
We do this to have something to do. A lot of our drivers are retirees, and they come out to do their community service and have a routine and have a reason to get up in the morning, and they get a little extra fun money to go on vacation and that kind of stuff. So it's a great job.
my best driving for 10 years. I said, look, if you're going to work part-time, you might as well make as much money as you can. And for a part-time job, it pays pretty good for this area. I enjoy the elementary kids more than I do anything, but it's been a lot of fun.
People tell me that, how can you drive kids? And I'm like, hey, that's the best part of the job. The rest of it's a piece of cake. So, but I really enjoy, driving, and keeps me active, gets me up in the morning.
I drive the school bus because I love it. It's an awesome job. I love going and picking up the students, watching them get on the bus, the little ones with the big smiles on their face, wondering, all the excitement they're going to be doing while they're going to school, middle, high school. I drive all ages. It's just a wonderful job.
I drive because I'm retired Navy, and it's great, after serving my country, to give back to my community. Our kids are the future of America, and it's great to have a part to where I'm contributing to them and to make sure that they get what they need.
We will train you from the get-go. We should be able to help you through the whole process of getting your learner's permit, getting your endorsements, and then we have a 24-hour classroom training that we do, and then we do your 24-hour on-the-road training. So we do all of it in-house. All you need to do is come with a love for children.
Hey, Jill. Hey, Jessica, how are you? Doing okay? Yes. Well, I don't blame you. Yes.
Got one going. Gotta be. Hey, Jill. How's it going? Good time tonight. Fun times like this, right? Are you kidding? I bet you he'll just say, no, that's not me. It's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Hey, Ken. When I was first on the school board, I went to Glenver Middle School. I had a dark blue suit on and, all dressed up. This little boy walks by with his dad and he says, "Here's the president." Yeah, right. It's just a little guy. There's the president.
No kidding. Oh my goodness. Welcome everyone to the Roanoke County School Board meeting, November the 12th, 2020. We have currently been in closed session. We're coming out of closed session. Mr. Linden, would you read us out of closed session, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that the Roanoke County School Board come out of closed session for the following: to discuss ongoing personnel matters under investigation pursuant to the personnel exemption at 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia. And I also move to certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which this closed meeting was convened, were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting by the school board.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, will you call a roll?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Action 2.03. Action from closed session. So we will welcome and we'll rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we have item 4.01. Any changes in the agenda? Board members? Dr.
Sir.
Nicely? Madam Clerk? Okay, thank you. Approval of agenda, please.
So moved.
Second. Got a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, will you call a roll, please?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. 5.01, recognition of State National Adult Female Athlete of the Year, Northside High School, Mrs. Ashlyn Moore. Ms. Jill Green, welcome.
Well,
we're very excited
for
about
having
this. Look at that big medal on there. Wow.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Nicely, we are very excited to be here tonight. We couldn't tell Ashlyn until this afternoon Because we weren't sure we'd be able to handle her for a couple of weeks. Okay? But she held it together, and she asked if she should wear her medals, and I said absolutely. So we are very excited. Ashlyn was recognized earlier in the year as a 2020 Female Athlete of the Year for the Commonwealth Games in the state of Virginia. And then last month, was it, Ashlyn, that you were at the tournament, and she had no clue, and she was recognized at that point for the 2020 Female Athlete of the Year at the national level.
Wow.
So we are very proud of our special Viking. And what makes it even more special for us, today, she joined me in the cafeteria. Do you want to share them what you came to join me for in the cafeteria? What was the ice cream social for? So we have a true student athlete in front of us. Do you want to introduce your guest, your special guest?
This is my grandmother, Karen, my papa, and Miss Wanda.
Miss Wanda, her teacher.
Wanda.
And you've been with her how long, Miss Wanda?
Oh, many years.
10 years.
10.
Wow.
Wow.
Anything else you'd like to share?
Thank you
Ah.
everyone for coming, and I really appreciate y'all supporting and coming to the board meeting and helping me success my board and for having me.
Absolutely.
Nice,
Thank you,
Ashlyn.
Ashlyn.
Thank you.
Let's do this. Go on this side. Sessions over here. I just want to get you to this way.
Ashlyn, you made us proud. We're so proud of you for this, and it is quite an honor. So we're very humbled. So thank you, Ashlyn.
Thank you.
Ms. Green, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Green.
With item 6.01, hearing of citizens and delegations, I have none. Madam Clerk, none. Item 7.01, report by Student Advisory Council, Mr. Mark Linkus. Welcome, Mark. Good to see you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Dr. Nicely. My name is Mark Linkus, and I'm a senior at Glenver High School. The Student Advisory Council met on November 4th on a WebEx call where we actually discussed updates on the development of our Instagram account and website of the SAC, as both are nearly ready to launch. After this, Ms. Kay, who is a life counselor at Glenver Middle School, spoke to the council about the importance of mental health, understanding what mental health conditions look like, and how we cope with these conditions. Especially during these challenging times for both students and teachers, learning how to cope by establishing positive lines of thought and routines is very, very important. And this is a crucial topic that members of the council now have the ability, thanks to Ms. Kay, to bring back to their schools and principals so we can actually see these issues inside the school be addressed as well. And so thank you so much for your ongoing support of the Student Advisory Council.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
And, you know, it's so important, that connection that we have with the students, and to listen, because this is what it's about, that you give us input, you know, what you see, you're right there every day and seeing everything. So we appreciate that connection that we have with the Student Advisory Council. Thank you, Mark. Item 8, consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
I got a motion, second? I got a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. And just to reiterate, our work sessions where we do a lot of the work that is going on in the consent agenda is actually live streamed as well. So please, if you get a chance, you can always go out there and look and see what the items in more detail into some of these items. So, thank you. Item 9, action items, 9.01, William Byrd High School budget reallocation request. Mrs. Susan Peterson. Welcome, Ms. Peterson. You got a lot tonight. Must be budget money time.
I'm bringing you everything from last year all at one time, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So the first item I bring before you tonight is for the William Byrd High School budget reallocation. As you know, we did approve the contractor award under consent agenda today. And although it's not required by our lawyers or by the auditors to have the budget in place right now for the full contract, the county has asked that we set aside the budget to cover the full contract. So what I am bringing before you, on the top, can you make that a little bit bigger, Chuck? Yes, please. Not that big.
Not that top.
So at the top of this, the beginning shows you the funding. We set aside $1.5 million for the project in 2019. And then in this year, 2021, we set aside $17.1 million. And then in our CIP, which was approved under the consent agenda, we've got another $4.6 million going into the project to round out the total funding. So as far as the spending, we spent about $38,790 in fiscal year 2020 and getting ready for the RFP and stuff for the design build. And then this year, we've got the $20 million Avis and Hughes contract. We had previously were going to only put the cash piece in here and put the bond piece in next year. However, due to the request of the county, we will go ahead and set up that funding stream this year. And then we have $690,000 of other costs. So if you scroll down to the bottom, and then to the left a little bit. So that blue number at the top, all of the blue numbers down here relate to them. I like to color code if y'all haven't noticed by now. They all relate together, and so this shows you exactly how much money we would need as of this year to fund this budget. What we have available right now is the $1.5 million and the $17.1 million that has already been allocated to the budgets. So Mr. Lowe and I, he was a great help. We looked at our projects that are open now and what other funding options we had available. And in the major capital fund, the Glen Cove project and the W.E. Cundiff projects, we're not going to have any activity on them this year. So that budget is available to be freed up for this year. We will replace it on July 1st. And then the year-end carryover for the CMP, so that's under the next action item. We still plan on leaving that as noted to be allocated, appropriated for the CMP. The plan is to go ahead and appropriate it for the CMP, but then turn around and put it into the William Byrd project until next year. And again, July 1st, we will refund the CMP. We have another $1 million in the CMP through the CIP. There's a lot of C's and P's in here. So actually next year we'll end up having $2 million in the reserves for the CMP. And then we have a project for minor capital tennis courts. We have $576,607 that has not been designated to be used at this time. And so we will pull that out and then we fund it July 1st. And we had $160,299 in minor capital reserves that we were able to use. And so what we are asking is for the school board to transfer $2,185,412 from these other capital projects to the William Byrd project so that we can cover the full cost of the Avis and Hughes purchase order and other items that we will be needing this year.
With knowing that we're going to replace it July the 1st.
Exactly.
Okay. Questions from Ms. Peterson?
Yeah, Ms. Peterson, I know this was last minute because they sprung this on us about, 20 or 30 hours ago or so? But, so these figures, I didn't get a chance to look at them earlier today. The tennis courts, did we get any of those done this year?
I'm going to ask Mr.
So does that mean the other 4 schools or 3 schools that were going to be done get put off until, and we very well may not have a tennis season this year, so that makes sense.
That's correct, yes, sir. What happened was we did not issue a PO for those other 4 schools. Hidden Valley was issued, and then when we had the, I don't know if you want to call it a financial crisis last year, those other 4 projects were put on hold, and that money's been sitting in the account on hold since then. We were getting ready to reallocate those jobs about a week ago to this week. Actually, the vendor was revising his numbers for me, and so he was anticipating a PO next week. So I've already informed him that likely it's not going to happen right now, and it'll probably happen next summer. Yes, sir.
Well, are they willing to hold that price?
No, he won't. He'll have to redo his price. Pricing is good for 30 days.
Okay, any further questions?
Nope.
Okay.
I mean, as long as we get these, as long as we pay it back, I have no, I know we've done it before with other projects, and I just think, all the board at the word that, when it comes time to get these funds replenished next year, we're going to make sure it happens. So, We did this, the Byrd project helped fund the Cave Spring project to make it, so put it into the next year. So, yeah, we just need to be committed that, we put it back just like we found it. And so thank you for doing that.
Go back to the CMP July the 1st. So, any other questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve action item number 9.01.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, will you call a roll, please?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Item 9.02, June 30, 2020 audit and year-end carryover appropriation request. Continue, Ms. Peters.
Thank you, sir. Tonight, we bring before you the final audited CAFR. I love to bring pictures. This is a lot of work of the finance staff putting this together. So this is the audited financial statements that we bring to you. It is attached in board docs, and we have paper copies if you need them. We have our independent accounting firm, Brown Edwards, here. They performed the audit. This is the second year that they've performed the audit. And I'm going to go ahead and yield the floor to Mr. Chris Banta, the partner who performed our audit for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, and good evening. It's good to see everybody, at least half y'all. So what we're going to do today is Susan introduced me. My name is Chris Banta. I'm the partner on your audit engagement with Brown Edwards. We were excited. We got rehired this year during the proposal process. We were really excited to do your work last year when your previous firm was acquired by our firm, but then we were really excited when we actually got engaged for the full term. So we really appreciate that. We just met with the audit committees of the county and the schools for about 45 minutes and went over these documents, the audit itself, in detail. So what I'm going to do right now is just go over the results of the audit at a pretty high level. One of the things that I just wanted to mention, though, that, this year COVID was the backbone, was the big elephant in the room for everything, including audits this year. There's an aspect of the audit I'll talk about shortly that actually got delayed because of COVID. But as auditors, we really just needed to understand when we started this year, what we know schools shut down, but how did that impact funding streams? How did that impact serving your students? How did it impact your activity funds? How did you serve them, not just financially, but operationally? How did that change? So all of these things were the backbone to how we did your audit this year, just planning it and executing it. But I'm happy to say I'm here today to present the results of the audit in a public setting and it's about the same time as last year. This aspect was not delayed. So commend your team for getting us to this point here. The first phase of our audit, of course, is the audit of the actual financial statements themselves. We opine on the reasonableness, the materiality of those financial statements, and I'm happy to report that you got an unmodified, clean opinion on the financial statements this year. The second phase of our audit is performed under government auditing standards, because you are a government entity. During this phase, we examine your operations, your internal controls. If we have findings during that process, I would have to report those to you and include them in your audit report as what we call material weakness or significant deficiency. I'm happy to say for the second year in a row, we do not have any of those findings. And that's relatively uncommon with all the governments that we do audit. So I want to commend your team for taking processes, controls very serious. Third phase is performance of compliance tests. We are provided a compliance supplement by the state of Virginia that gives about an 80-page document of steps and procedures and tests we have to do. Some of them are not even financial in nature, but we have to do these specific tests. I'm happy to report no findings there. And then the fourth phase of the financial statement audit is what we call the federal single audit. Because you receive federal funding and you expend that federal funding, we have to audit those programs, that federal funding, on a cyclical basis. That part of the audit, which is only reported at the county level in their countywide audit, is actually on hold right now. The guidance from the federal government has not been released for the 2020 audits. So all audits pretty much statewide are on hold, waiting for the federal government to issue the guidance for that. Now, the reason that is delayed and we can't use last year's guidance is because entities throughout the state received a significant amount of CARES Act money. And that CARES Act money has special requirements that have to be audited, and auditors have to get their guidance from the federal government. So until they release that, we can't put that final piece of the puzzle together. But I'm happy to say we can issue your audit tonight in final, and you have a copy of it in final, because that single audit, that federal part, shows up only in the county's audit. So, also happy to report that to get to the audit, to get to a clean opinion, we didn't have any significant adjustments, no disagreements with management, no situations where they felt they needed to get a second opinion from another auditor or anything like that. So a very clean audit. Appreciate Susan and her team, because, I mean, there's a lot of remote work. There's a lot of just figuring out, our team, some of them are working at night because they're doing homeschooling during the day. So there's a lot of that going on, but we got here today, and really appreciate everybody's time.
Questions? Would you just talk about a little bit about the CARES Act and the funding and what is happening that, if you don't get money spent, and is there any extension on that? Or
Sure, I'm happy to. So as part of the CARES Act, one component of the CARES Act was what they call the Coronavirus Relief Fund, the CRF, I believe is what it's called. And that funding is a significant amount of money, and it went to state and local governments. So throughout the United States, the states got the money. And then the states were then given the opportunity to just give this to localities to govern the spending themselves, or does the state handle that? And in Virginia just chopped up all that money and gave two large deposits basically to all cities and counties. One large deposit was made in May, and one I think came in August. Now, that guidance is very restrictive, but also moderately vague, which has been a frustration for just about everybody who received this money. One of the things that's not vague is the fact that you have to spend it all by December 30th. So the goal of that funding is to tie directly in to coronavirus and COVID-19 responses. Going through the vetting process of what that really means has changed as additional FAQs and guidance has come out from the federal government, but it's very restrictive. And the deadline of December 30th, there's been no indication whether that will be extended. So there's governments out there that have the money, but it's so restrictive, it's hard to use. I will say, I think I mentioned this before this meeting, there are proposals from, I think, Congress. One of those proposals is that you could use 25% of that money for revenue replacement, but that has not gone anywhere. And so we're still based on the initial guidance that came out when the funding was released. So.
And I guess where we were in Roanoke County, we ended up with about 17 million. Is that about correct?
It was two funding streams of CARES Act money, I think between 8 and 9 million each. So
All right, but it has to be booked by December 30.
So it has to be spent. So one of the things, some of these projects I'll share with you is that some of the projects that some local governments explored were pretty big. Revamping facilities, ordering special fire and rescue vehicles that have plastic shields or something. Some of these projects could not be done by December 30th. And so some of these projects that make total sense, the governments were finding they couldn't even engage because you have to spend it. You can't just commit and say, we're going to spend it. You have to spend it right now. So that's one of the bigger challenges the local governments are facing.
Yeah, and frontline workers. Mr. Greenway.
Real quick. So, and I haven't had time to review all this, but I see the increases here, the sales tax, Medicaid revenues, interest income, reimbursement, some of that stuff. That doesn't speak to, and maybe this is for Susan too, it doesn't speak to revenues from what would have been the fourth quarter, I guess, of the fiscal year that were higher. Is that than what was budgeted? It says sales tax collections higher than budgeted. Was that because we reduced our budget on the sales tax?
We were conservative last year.
Okay, and so but did we receive that from the county? Did our,
Tim, maybe a little more into the microphone so that Chuck and the audience
all right, so,
online can hear you.
you know what? Here we go. So, so I guess what I'm asking is, did we get the percentage per our agreement with Board of Supervisors? Is all of that factored in? Does that make sense, what I'm asking? Unless
Money
So-
that was taken away?
Yeah,
Was the-
right, because we had that taken away.
Not for fiscal year 2020. We're talking about
2020.
ending in June of
Well,
2020.
But that fourth quarter would have been part of that, right?
Fourth quarter
April 1
of
to
the
June,
fiscal?
April 1 to June 30th, right?
Mhm.
So we were reduced, let's see, or was our budget only reduced for 21?
Our budget was only reduced for fiscal year
So for
2021.
2020, it was
We were whole in 2020.
it's okay, that makes sense.
Well, we kept it.
Okay.
I do have
Any
a
more?
question.
Mr. Greenway, anything
That's
else?
good, yeah, that's fine.
Mr. Busser?
And this is CARES related, and so if I understand it correctly, the county received about $17 million in CARES Act funding.
CRF money, there's other money that schools.
There's other money but just CARES related. How much of that did the county actually give us? What is the allocation? that
I don't
they've
have the
given us?
schedule in front of me, but I think it was 1.8 million.
1.8. And we have a list of COVID-related expenses that we turned over to the county, I believe yesterday at the chair-vice chair meeting, right?
They've had them for some time,
had
I
them.
think.
They had those.
Okay, let me ask you it a different way. What is the total amount of money that we have used operation funds for that would be CARES related by definition that we've pulled out of our operating fund?
I'd have to do research to be able to.
Can you get that to me when it's time for me to do my closing remarks? There's a sheet here. What is this sheet that I think you put this together?
Yes, sir.
Just here, take this. I need to know that. I need to know, you put together a list of X number of millions of dollars of items and expenses that we've incurred in order to manage COVID. Correct? No? Oh, that's what I need. I need what that total is. Because I want to make a case and I want to make a point at some point in time in my remarks.
I can pull that together.
Okay, thanks. Just give me a bulk, the total.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Because we still need the county to agree to make us whole on that, correct? Yes, no? Am I confused? Do we have a list of CARES-related expenses for which we've used operating funds for, that we've gone to the county and said, look, we believe these are CARES-related, could you fund,
I think they've approved everything we've asked for so far.
Okay, that's.
Yeah, I think okay, so if I'm remembering correctly,
Right.
way back when we first found out that they had the second allotment, we came up with a list.
Right.
And then we added some things to the list,
we
which
did.
what you have in your possession, the one that says not funded, those were not necessarily what we had incurred. Some of them were, but not all of them. And some of them were funded other ways.
Basically, everything we've asked them to fund, they've funded.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Further questions?
Comments?
Mr.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, just according to their agenda and the PowerPoint from the chair-vice chair meeting held yesterday between the school board and the Board of Supervisors, the first allocation, Mr. Butzer, they provided $706,939. The second allocation, PPE instructional needs, $1.174 million. And then they're also lumping together almost $900,000 that they assisted with the daycare programs for a total of $2,769,130. So 2.8 out of, what would we say, like 17 million?
Right.
So,
I guess where I got confused is I thought I heard from the feedback yesterday that the county was surprised about a list that we provided them that we thought was CARES related.
Yeah. Year-end balance.
Okay, thank you.
That was the year-end balance. And that, for some of those programs, like, will continue on into next year, like the after-school programs, things like that, right? The funding for some of that.
It is
They have
what
got
they
that
presented
extended.
yesterday. It sounded like they were going to continue through.
It was going to continue, so.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Peterson, I'd just like to thank you for you and your staff for all the hard work, and obviously if Brown Edwards gives it their stamp of approval, that's a good thing. So I know that you guys have worked diligently on keeping us in line and keeping all the finances in line, so thank you. As I mentioned in the work session, I do have a little bit of a concern with our year-end surplus and the desire to spend that on reoccurring costs rather than one time, and that specifically getting to the step bonus or the step increase instead of a one-time bonus. So I know that the staff didn't necessarily recommend that, and I personally don't feel as though I know more than you do about this situation. So I'm not sure I can support that that motion to spend year-end surplus in that manner. So I'm fully aware that our teachers, everybody in the county deserves some sort of bonus or some sort of pay. I'd love to see a big bonus rather than the step increase, which will result in $1.8 million of additional funds that we'll need to come up with next year. So, but I hope the teachers or staff does not take that as a slight. They definitely deserve something. I'm just not convinced that the step increase is the best route to go.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Butzer.
One of the great things about being on a board, serving with a group, is that you do have different opinions. And so I'd like to respond and give you my opinion about that. If you were to ask the teachers, most of them, if they'd rather have a step increase or a bonus, most of them will tell you that they'd rather have, a step increase. Because in a step increase, I mean, that has some long-term life implications. For example, that little bit of money, if you calculate what that will do each year, especially when it comes time to the pension, that money is better allocated to an employee by doing it in a step program. So it's better for the employee to do that. You give them a one-time bonus, it's gone forever. So from an employee perspective, I think it's the better thing to do.
than just give a bonus. But let's talk about the budget risk. For 10 years, for at least 10 years, and even during the darkest recession, almost depression that we've had, we have run extremely large surpluses every year. Even in 2007 or 2008, there was close to a $9 million surplus. And one of the things that I've said consistently since I've been on this board is for example, I believe that teachers are underpaid, grossly underpaid in the state of Virginia for the education that they have to invest in, for the dedication, for the hours they put in compared to their peers in other professions. It's a travesty that they're paid what they are. And that's our fault on this board in many respects. It's all at the state level, at the county level, but to leave huge surpluses every year, I think we're leaving money on the table. So if part of the job that we do is to manage risk. And I'm very comfortable with managing that risk on the STEP program, given all the history we have, given the prospects for the economy next year, the fact that we have a vaccine now and the economy will start to rip. I don't think that's going to be a problem at all, and I'm certainly willing to take that risk. Thanks.
Mr. Moretz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up on, Mr. Butzer's point, we have had a history, and I shared this with my counterpart on the Board of Supervisors, Mr. Radford, today. I mean, my personal feeling is that, we should not, I feel like we rely heavily on our surpluses to help fund construction projects. And I just don't think that is the best use of that funds, right? I mean, we have a CIP, we got that increased a little bit this year, but I mean, we need more, and the only way, unless we could come up with a way to do a significant one-time bonus, and I'm talking, in the $2,000 to $3,000 range, that's the only way I could support a potential one-time bonus. And I shared that with Mr. Radford today, on the Board of Supervisors. So, like Mr. Buster, I'm comfortable managing the risk given our history of the surpluses, and I think our employees deserve it. So, but thank you.
Is it accurate that the year-end surplus from last year, about $3 million, a little over half of it came from COVID, and not $1.2 million from not paying substitute teachers, and then about $1.8 million from savings that were almost directly COVID related, and the fact that we were shut down for the last 9 or 10 weeks?
The personnel savings, we got $1.8 million from contracts, so that was 1.55% of the personnel savings. $1.2 million related to the early retirement program, the substitutes and open-end positions. So 1.2 million of that were for positions that, since we did shut down, we did not need substitutes. We did not have the open-end contracts, people coming in for that, and we did not have the retirees working their days. So that was $1.2 million of our surplus.
So had we been in school, our surplus may have been closer to 2.9 million instead of 5.9.
It would have been much smaller, I would imagine, because I would have imagined we would have used those funds.
Mr. Greenway.
Yes. So, and I didn't know we were vetting this at this time, but I guess it's as good a time as any. To me, I go back to kind of what Mr. Butzer said. If we believe teachers are fairly compensated, then let's just do the one-time bonus and make it high enough. I don't think anybody on this board agrees that teachers are fairly compensated, right? So if that be the case, what helps them the best? And to me, it's that step increase, because it keeps on giving, and it gives to the VRS and to some of those, something to the future. Now, none of it's enough. I mean, let's be honest. Teachers and policemen, to me, are grossly underpaid and should probably be doubled in pay. Obviously, we can't do that. We don't have the budget for that. But to me, again, it comes back to the fair question of, are our teachers fairly compensated? And we do an adequate job amongst our peers in the other counties. But to me, the step increase makes sense. Go back retro it to July 1. We make them whole for this year. And as Mr. Butzer said, I fully agree with this. Before we came on the board, there was 6 or 7, 8 years that teachers didn't. There might have been one raise. Might have been one raise and a $500 bonus. Where does that get you? We know what things are going up, and so to me, one of the proudest accomplishments for our board is that we have given a step and a raise every year. Again, admittedly, it's not enough, but so I'm in the camp of. In fact, I guess I was the one that said, we're going to give that much in bonus. Let's give a step and make them whole back to July 1. And when July 1 comes next year, or our budget, when we start budgeting this year, I guess, not too long, I think we deal with it then. And, we've made it in the past. I'm not, going on faith, but I think we go on the numbers of the history kind of predicts the future. And hopefully we'll be fine. And I think numbers bear that out in that we did 2 work sessions, the last 2 work sessions, and we had adequate funding to do these. And I realize it was one time versus recurring, but I think we'll be fine. We'll be fine. Plus let's take it a step further and look. We did have a joint chair-vice chair meeting yesterday, right? I would have loved to have had both boards in the same room. I shared that. We should be public, we should be transparent, and we should have laid that out, laid it out on the table. That there was some question about that, but in my mind, there's no question. Our teachers are worth it, and we need to make it happen. And so that's where I land. Thank you, and thank you all for the exceptional work every year. I almost forgot to say that, but we get a clean opinion, a clean audit, and that's there are some districts in some places that would love to have that, and we thank you for all you. And we know you're next in line to Dr. Nicely for having to deal with five crazy people from different areas of the county, and we appreciate everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing. I mean, to have a I'll use the word totally clean audit in a school system this size is quite an accomplishment. I think, you've basically said that. It's just not the case everywhere else. So, that's a testimonial not only to our finance organization, but all of the people who handle transactions, right? And that's all the employees in the county. I mean, think of all the opportunities in a school system where you have 2,000 employees who handle and who are responsible for all the money we're responsible for. It's quite an accomplishment. Very, very, very proud.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Appreciate it.
Okay, I guess, yes, and I want to also, a clean audit is exceptional, and we have been doing that, and it's credit, and we want to thank Susan for the excellent process controls that she does, and I know we're not sometimes the easiest. She'll look at us sometimes, and behind the mask, you can see her eyes going, what? What'd they say? But she says, oh, okay, we'll go with. But we do appreciate that. We appreciate all your staff, you and your staff that really work with us. And, we did the compensation study. We did that a few years ago, which recognized that we wanted to do something for our teachers that would be meaningful each year. And I think this sends them a message of how much we really do appreciate the efforts and work that they're doing, because, we all have talked to many of our teachers in our district, and, they don't quit in the afternoon. They get home, and then the parents get home, and then they're actually getting calls. And what happened here? Or my daughter doesn't understand this. So we know that they really are putting in those extra efforts, and we know that, as Mr. Greenway said, our teachers, police, fire and rescue, they don't do it for the money. We try as much as we can to continue to, continue to provide what we can. And I know when I was on the other side, I told the chief one time, and I said, we can give you all the money we can with the budget, but we're going to give you all the equipment, everything equipment-wise that you seem to need. So we're trying to provide those things too. So we do appreciate the efforts, and we know maybe that wasn't exactly the way, but that's what you're for. You're to give us recommendations, and we're to look at it as from a board, and we have different opinions, and we make those decisions. So we thank you for the hard work that you do. Thank you, Brown Edwards, for the work as well. Okay.
So can I get the motion to?
Yeah.
Oh, we almost forgot.
Yeah. Well, I was waiting until one of them said it. I figured somebody's going to make a motion here.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve June 30th, 2020 audit and year-end carryover appropriation request.
Second?
All right, I got a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
No, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you. And just stay put. Item 10, information agenda, 10.01, June 30, 2020 annual school report. Mrs. Susan Peters.
Well, I guess I never know when to say things sometimes. Just to let you know, now that the school board has approved that, I will be taking it to the Board of Supervisors, and they will have their first ordinance on approving it, since some of the funds in there are not within their normal policy, which is major, minor, capital, CMP, school safety and security, or CSA. Since some of the items in there do not fall under those regions, they will have to have an ordinance specifically to approve our use of these funds, and then they will have the second ordinance on that December 1st.
Yes. And we did our part on our side, changed our policies, and they have agreed to change their policies. So stay tuned.
I don't think they're going to change their policy. Or weren't they going to make an exception?
1 year.
A one-time exception.
1 year exception.
Yeah, I think they're just going to accept the ordinance as an exception.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the clarification.
You're welcome.
All right. So for the annual school report, another of the large tasks that are on our plate at the end of the year is to pull together your next book, the landscape one. This is the annual school report. And it has multiple sections that reports on our revenues and our expenditures, our FTEs, and various other schedules in the back. One requirement that's a pretty big requirement that VDOE has for us is we have to take our trial balance. We have to summarize it according to the VDOE's description of their function, their subfunction, their cost center, their program, their activity, their object. And now that everyone's getting glassy-eyed by all these different ways and by the school, so that we can create a trial balance to upload to their system. And just for your information, our trial balance was 4,259 lines. They get this information and they distribute it to the state superintendent, the governor, the GA, the USDOE, the US Census Maker, and all these policymakers, just to use in developing how they're going to spend the direct aid for public education. So there's no direct funding, but it is very important that we have the numbers correct so that they have the best information for making their decisions. A new change last year actually, was we had to add the by school into each of the categories, so that now if you go to our website and you look at the school quality profiles, you will see that every school has a per pupil spending for their local plus state, and a per pupil spending for their federal. And that will be different from school to school to school. It'll also be different from the division as a whole and from the state as a whole. So that is a new requirement as well. That's a federal requirement that was pushed down at the end of the year. Our state quality profiles will not be updated until probably the end of this year, because it just takes them that long to get through the data. So that was hopefully short and sweet for that one.
Okay. 10.02, Student Activity Fund, audit.
All right, so previously we talked about the school board audits, and now I'd like to shift gears to your last little book, which is our student activity funds. So these are the funds that are at each of the schools, and they really cover all of the activities. We have a bookkeeper who manages all of you referenced earlier, Mr. Butzer, all of the 2,000 employees. Well, most of that money ends up going through here because they're the ones who are collecting the cash in the classrooms or at the football games, which none of which is happening now. But in a normal year, you would have lots of that type of activity going on. And so this is really that audit. And again, Brown Edwards did this audit, and let me get my computer out of your way this time. So I'll let him make a few comments.
Sure. Thanks again. This one will be a little shorter and sweeter, but we do a separate audit of the activity funds. This is not taxpayer money. This is not grant money. This is literally funds paid for football games and student activities that's then spent on those activities. So we do this testing. We actually test each school almost like its own little audit. So it gets a lot of extra scrutiny as opposed to auditing the entire set as one. So likewise, we had to adapt our audit plan because of COVID. We weren't going out to all the school or centralized location, or I can't remember. I think, did we spread out in a library here? Did we go to school? It's hard to keep track, but I know some places they stuck us in libraries. We had to adapt, and we did it well, and we're happy to say that these cash basis financials also got a clean opinion. So,
Thank you. 10.03, OPEB, Trust Fund.
Well, y'all are really too fast for me because I had another comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I wanted to just take a moment to thank Mr. Banta and his colleagues, Ms. Genova and Mr. Zaccardi, who are our managers on the audits, and my staff, Ms. Dees, Ms. Rawlings, and Ms. Cool, because this was in a time when everything was coming with COVID. They really made this an easy audit. They have stepped up and done so much extra work. We had laptop refunds to process through our office for the elementary schools, and I am so grateful for the stellar team that I have, and I just wanted to make that known that they are just doing a fantastic job. As far as with the student activity funds, all of our bookkeepers and all of our principals do a fantastic, phenomenal job. We would not be here with as much cash that goes around. We would not be here with these clean opinions from our auditor if our bookkeepers and our principals were not so stellar in their ensuring our policies and procedures are followed and straight online. So I just want to thank all of those people who are very integral to this.
I agree.
Right.
All right, now going, sorry.
That's fine.
I guess I need to learn. I need to get all my comments in before the auditor.
That's all right.
Fine, don't change a thing.
You keep going.
All right, so the last piece that I'll bring, and like I said, I just brought all of the June 30th stuff to you at one time so we could just do it and get it over with. So we are a part of the VML VACO Pooled Trust. This is funds that we set aside for the retiree health plan. These are to help fund, retirees can stay on our health insurance after they leave, and then ones who participate in the early retirement plan will get $2,500 towards their premium. And so this trust is set up to start collecting funds so that we can pay them in the future. We are not currently using it to pay any claims, but we are building up because we know in the future we're going to have a place from which we can spend these. This trust is overseen by the Roanoke County Local Finance Board, and we do meet quarterly and look at the investment activity. And this is a fiduciary fund in the CAFR, the big book I showed you at first. During the year, we did contribute $92,290. That historically has been what we have contributed to the trust. We got a new actuary, and I want to have some time to really dive into the actuary and speak with them as to best planning before I bring back a request to, of how much we want to put into the trust for this current year, especially amid the pandemic that we are in. So that's it. That's our report.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Peterson.
Thank you.
10.04, Harbor Freight Tools for Schools Prize for Teaching Excellent. Mr. Jason Sir, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Nicely. As you recall, recently, Mr. Burns at Burton Center, the mechatronics robotics teacher, was awarded by Harbor Freight the Tools for School Prize for Teaching Excellence. As part of the prize, Harbor Freight awarded $35,000 to use at Burton Center. We're proud of Mr. Burns and look forward to seeing how he'll use that prize money with his students. There's one thing we need to take care of, and that is taking care of the $35,000 properly. There are grant contingency funds available to appropriate for this award, so staff recommends appropriation of the $35,000 from the grant contingency fund to be used for the Skilled Trades program at Burton Center. And I believe.
Questions for Mr. Sir?
Questions?
Great job.
Just another good story.
Yep, it really is. It's great things that you're doing up there at Burton. Sir. Okay, item 11.01, report by Roanoke County School Superintendent, Dr. Nicely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to give just a quick update in terms of some of the work that we're doing regarding, looking at our school schedules. I know we've talked about, what are some next steps and that kind of thing. I've, relayed that to the board, but just to give everybody a quick update on that. First of all, of course, we're, from the get-go, looking at what we can do safely and doing as much as we possibly can. We obviously want as many of our students in person as possible, as long as we can do that safely and following our CDC and Health Department guidelines. So those are questions we're continuing to ask. We're, of course, having weekly conversations with our Health Department in terms of, what's good timing in terms of doing different things, and so we're going to continue to do that. We have Ms. Hogan and I did start meeting this week, as promised, with our 4th and 5th grade teachers. We've met with 3 of the schools this week, and we'll have those wrapped up before the Thanksgiving holiday. And just really appreciate the opportunity to have just really in-depth conversations with those groups of teachers and hearing, what they're experiencing, how they're making, things work, what their concerns are, what they would like to do. So that information, I think, has been really helpful. Also this week, Mr. Lowe in the Transportation Department has been collecting from our schools some updated bus ridership information, because that'll be a key factor in terms of where we stand with that. We are also talking with our Parks and Rec partners in terms of the after-school Ask program, because as far as large spaces to go to in our schools, for the most part, we're left with just gymnasiums. That obviously impacts the after-school programs, as well as the whole school in terms of use of those. There's some just conversations we're having in terms of options there, just kind of cover our bases. We are meeting with Human Resources and Finance. In fact, we're having a meeting tomorrow just to look at the budget situation, how many more teachers to cover, like online classes or spillover rooms, instructional assistants, and kind of looking at the budget picture and also the candidate pool picture in terms of looking where that stands. That'll be a key factor for as well. And of course, I mentioned the Health Department conversation as well. So also, I know Dr. Stegall at the last work session updated the board in terms of the athletic program. Of course, the governor made an announcement recently. BHSL has their guidelines, and just like a lot of things, they've kind of put it back on the local school systems and local localities to make these decisions. And so we've had conversations with our health department on that front as well. Just yesterday, we met with all the superintendents in our region. When I say our region, I mean our greater Region 6, which is basically Allegheny County down to Pittsylvania County, so that wide range, about 13 school districts. The athletic directors met yesterday with Dr. Stegall, and all the folks in Dr. Stegall's position met Monday across those regions to have discussions. We also discussed this with in our health region, which is Salem, Roanoke City, Roanoke County, Botetourt, Allegheny, Greg Covington, regarding that with Dr. Adele and Dr. Morrow. So The draft that they're working on, and right now it looks like across the 13 school districts, is just trying to find some kind of metric to follow in making these decisions, really trying to avoid making blanket decisions like they've done. I know Richmond City, I think, just recently announced, and I think a couple of private schools, but in terms of optimism, in terms of where things stand, I mean, I wish we could be more optimistic, but just to sort of give a gauge and try to leave the door open, basically what the school districts are trying to agree to do. And I think out of the 13, 10 have agreed. There's 3 that are still thinking about it. But, if on a week-by-week basis for, upcoming like winter sports when that gets started, if the conditions are in what they call a moderate range or lower, so we have moderate, low, low and then minimal in terms of transmissions. You've got all the metrics, hospitalization rates and just the burden on the health system, all of those measures. Then play would be allowed. If we're still in what they call orange or red areas, which is high or highest, which where we currently are, then there would not be games. But trying to do that on a week-by-week basis versus making a blanket decision and try to keep, conditioning and that kind of stuff, which is good for kids, those opportunities, following the VHSL guidelines, as open as long as we possibly can. School visits. Mr. Ray and I visited Clearbrook on Monday, and it was really great to see all the learning happening with the little ones and the older ones as well. Got to William Byrd High School, William Byrd Middle School the previous Friday, and I'm so impressed with our teachers as well as our students in terms of the good work that they're doing. Just really appreciative of all their hard work and making that work for our kids. We've already recognized Hidden Valley High School, National Blue Ribbon School, but tomorrow is the official ceremony at the national level to recognize them, and so we'll be tuning in to watch that tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nice. All right, item 12, important inquiries of board members. Who wants to go first?
I'll go ahead.
All right, go ahead.
Yesterday being Veterans Day, it was always one of my favorite days of the year when my boys would go through school and the veterans would come in, and I just wanted to say thank you to all our veterans, Mr. Butzer included, for your service, and our veterans are truly the ones who have made this country great, despite what some people in Washington might think.
I'm with you there.
One final word on the year-end surplus. I look at this as spending taxpayer dollars even more conservatively than I would spend my own dollars. And my no vote there was more of a concern about finding that $1.8 million and $1.8 million every year in future years, especially considering if they don't hold us harmless on ADM and we lose another $1.8 million, we're looking at $3.6 million and having to come up with that. So, but again, I do want to stress to the teachers and everybody out there that a step increase is fine. I think a bonus would have been a more conservative route for our board for future budget seasons. So, other than that, I want to wish everybody a Thanksgiving, since it's a happy Thanksgiving. This is our only board meeting in November. That's all.
Thank you. Morris?
No, not a whole lot to comment on. I feel like I said enough during the budget aspect of it, but just a quick question, Dr. Nicely. Do you know, I guess, a ballpark figure, on number of teachers, ballpark on teachers we have out, subs, just trying to get a feel for, when we talk about substitutes, we know that's been a struggle. Have we been able to find enough subs? If not, obviously our teachers are teachers are helping each other. Can you kind of give us, you mind giving a quick health update on that?
Yeah, I've actually had this conversation with Mr. Bradshaw recently just to get some data around that issue, so I can share with what I know. So, first of all, the number of staff members that we have out on a daily basis because of having to quarantine, obviously that's a burden. Most recent numbers, it's hovering right around the 80 range on a given day. Of course, that's spread around 27 schools. So I know in talking with individual principals, just asking, hey, how many is that? So, the answer you typically get is, 2, 3, 4. So, spread out among the 27 schools. But it is, something that obviously is a burden. Interestingly, I was asking also just comparing absenteeism among our staff, especially the teacher ranks this year compared to last year. And actually, overall absenteeism has not increased. So, which is good news. So, I think our staff, our teachers are doing a really good job of just being mindful of, only being out if they need to be. But obviously, if they're sick and having symptoms, obviously we want them to be. And of course, they're being quarantined, as they're being asked to do that. So, finding coverage when folks are out is obviously a continual challenge. That's true nationally. Some things that we've done specifically, and one of the things that as a board you took action on, which we really appreciate, is looking again at our sub policy. We had a couple years ago increased our sub pool by allowing high school graduates to sub, and we had set an age range for that, a minimum age of I think 24. And we looked around, and some of our neighbors will do that at a lower range. And so we've changed that policy. We hope that'll help. Obviously, we want good people, and so if that doesn't work out on an individual basis, we'll take care of that. But there are a lot of folks who are on an age range where we think they could do a good job, especially with younger students. And so we've made that change in the policy, and hopefully that'll do us some good as well. Another thing that we did was, in fairness to our teachers, when they have to cover for colleagues who are out, we're paying them if they're doing it during their planned time. So it's if it's time in which they would ordinarily not be encumbered because of planned time, if they're having to cover, then we're compensating them for that. So there are some small steps we're trying to do to cover, but it is, and to answer your question, certainly a daily challenge.
Mm-hmm. Do you know? I mean, is that kind of a flat rate that we're covering? No, teachers and stuff, if they're having to use
it's
the
like a
plan?
time sheet. I forget what the rate is. 25 an hour. Yeah, it's
Okay.
the standard time sheet rate. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I think that's definitely something, that should get a little bit more publicity. That's kind of where I was actually getting at. I did not know.
You're speaking of when teachers have to cover?
Teachers have to cover for other teachers.
Oh, right. Yeah, they're aware. I mean, at the school level, right.
So, no, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr.
Mr. Chairman?
No, go ahead. That's fine.
All right. It may be a while. So. I hope I don't embarrass him, but I want to recognize Mr. Dan Sell back there. Just say hello. He's one of our teacher heroes. He's a second grade teacher at Mason's Cove. He's been there for at least 10 years. I believe you had one of my daughters when she was in 5th grade or something like that. But he's studying for a master's, and he's one of his things he needs to check off is serve a school board meeting and also interview somebody from the government, and he checked that one off the other day with me, right? So I'm glad you're here. Thanks. I wanted to talk a little bit about, elections do have, consequences. And I believe that voters do have a lot of power. I think that is something that's great about a democracy. And I believe, in my personal view, is I think public education is underfunded. It's underfunded at the federal level, it's underfunded at the state level, and it's underfunded at the county level. And that's just been the case for a long, long time. And I'll just kind of give you some examples, is that if you look at the percentage, first of all, I want to say, I do appreciate the working relationship that we have with the county. There are a lot of positive things, a lot of good things that come from that relationship. But that doesn't say that it can't improve over time. For example, if you look at our pay rates and you look at the STEP program, we could do better. The state and the county could do better. If you look at our facilities, I'll just give you an example. We have 9 schools that Dr. Nicely and his staff have identified that need to be renovated now, not 10 years from now, but now. One of them that's very glaring is the Burton Center. Anybody who attends these meetings knows that probably 6 or 7 times a year, we're recognizing some great deed or something that's happened at the Burton Center. And you just wonder, what could that center really be like if it was or were a modern facility? Right now, given the funding schedule that we have with the county, the capital allocation, we won't be able to get to the Burton Center until 2030. 2033. The 9 schools that we have would take until at least 2033 as well. So we need to do something about that. We need our partners at the county to recognize that we have a facilities issue. I'll give you 2 glaring examples, Glen Cove and W.E. Cundiff. The state superintendent visited the school and said that he didn't know of any open classroom environment schools that existed any longer. I don't even think he ever saw one. I'm not quite sure. But we do need more funding for our facilities. On the operational side, if you look at the pay rate, as I said earlier, it's under. But let's just take a look at the number of positions that the state will fund us for. I wonder how much better instruction we could provide if we were actually not worried so much every year about surpluses. Almost always that surplus comes from underfunding our HR allocations. So we are very conservative and only hire the minimum number of teachers. I just wonder what our instruction would be like and the care we could give if we could hire more. So it's all related to funding. But when I said elections have consequences, I just wanted to remind next year, and it'll be here before you know it, there are going to be 3 school board members up for re-election and 3 board of supervisors up for re-election. I'm glad that we're live streaming, and I just want everybody to pay attention to what we say to see if we're committed to public education, because at the end of the day, a lot of politicians say they are, but when it comes to writing the check, they kind of forget about that. So I just want to talk about the constituency out there that we could energize. We've got 2,000 employees. They all have relatives. We have 13,000 students who have parents and grandparents and relatives. That's quite a voting block that you could energize. And I hope, and I plan to do that as best I can for the rest of the time that I'm on the board. And I'm so glad we're live streaming, because I think we might be able to get some help. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Greenway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I'll just play off of that, reverse where I was going. But I think all 5 board members here would agree. We agree on a lot of things, as I said before. But the CIP right now, we agree where it's at and what needs to be done. But we also agree there's one school that really doesn't have a dedicated board member, but we all agree it's essential to what we do in this valley and for our student development and workforce development. And in my mind, it's a great economic driver, right? Economic revenue generator for our businesses. And Mr. Sir has done a wonderful job facilitating, incubating our internship program and the companies that are, and we haven't heard about that in a while, if any have come along. And I hate that this COVID has taken us off in so many different directions, but so Burton, coming back to that, is a central issue, I think, to the school board and to the Board of Supervisors. To me, I think it's time that we don't change our CIP. We all agree where we're at with that. But that's one piece of money that we could take off the table, and we need to get that done quicker rather than later. We need that done now. We need it done in the midst of all the trades we need that we know we're lacking. I think this is something that we take to the people and let's ask them, is this important enough that we fix this problem, we get it modernized, we get it up to date, and we decide that this is one of our economic generators. Let's do it and let's move it forward. And I think we'll find that we can get this done quicker, and that moves the other projects up faster. Now, it's not perfect, but then we can have that discussion. But we get that done a little quicker doing it that, we need to get it done. That's the bottom line. I won't belabor it because Mr. Butzer did that well. Secondly, thank you to all the veterans. I think, we are just lucky to even be here and talk about Burton or any of these schools, if not for the fact that our veterans, many of whom are not with us today because they sacrificed the ultimate. And we do thank all of them, and Mr. Butzer is one of those. So we thank each and every one of you. The William Byrd High School, the project and the funding, I know these guys know, but I don't think anyone really knows how hard this was to get it to where we're at today. And there's a lot of people to thank. And Dr. Nicely, probably first and foremost, on the school side, to recognize that it's an inequity that needed to be corrected, and we're finding that we're getting that taken care of. Mr. Butzer, and I've thanked him many times for this. Sometimes I think he thinks I'm blowing smoke up his rear.
Don't say that.
Well, I told you I couldn't be a politician. So please don't quote that.
Don't put that
Please
down,
don't
Claire.
quote that.
Too late now.
She is
Chuck, can you edit that out?
Well, at home, I said, no, I didn't say that. So anyway, but Mr. Butzer, really, I mean, he recognized, this is a good thing about our board, is that we recognize that we need to take care of all areas. And I think we do that in a good way. And I know we recognize our home areas, but that was one that needed to be fixed. And I really didn't know if we were going to get it to this point, and we're there. And so I think, and it goes without saying, and I'm serious, we need to thank each board member. Vinton thanks each board member for getting this done. It needed to be done, and we're going to be there. Next, the step increase. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. It needs to be done as well, and we've got to get that done and do a better job. Just keep that focus on keeping the teachers moving forward with pay raises. We talked a little bit about the 4th and 5th grade, and I was going to ask about that. That's 16 schools, elementary schools, and you're talking about a couple more weeks to have a recommendation or see what spacing we have at the elementary schools that we can make that a possibility and move that forward. And, and I've said this in work session, I want to say it again, I'll say it every time we're here. If you can get those kids anywhere in person, then it's incumbent upon us, whether we have to transition a whole nother, security and admin, whatever it is, then it's our responsibility to come up with that money, to find that money to make that a worthwhile venture. And so I know you're looking at those, and I appreciate it. We're probably pushing a little harder than we should sometimes, but we thank you. And we need to keep pushing in whatever direction needs to be done to get these kids back into school. Which leads me to the last thing that I'll talk about, and that's sports for the winter. We heard, there's several districts in the eastern part of the state that have already canceled. We hear through, I don't know if it was Claire or who it was that reported that Roanoke Catholic and 2 other Faith Christian and a couple other three private schools that have announced they're not playing. So, look, y'all know where I'm at on this. I want us to play. I want us to be in school. But I think that's going to be a challenge for some of our board to say that we can play sports while we can't be in school full time. So, I'll leave that where it's at. But it's going to be a challenge, and I don't want to mislead our folks because I think a lot of them think it's a foregone conclusion that we're playing, and I don't know that it is. So, obviously, I'll vote for it. But there's a lot of discussion probably got to be had between now and then. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board.
Thank you. Along that line with the VHSL, since things seem to be changing on a weekly basis, could you give us updates, Dr. Nicely, of where we are? Just drop us a text, email that what's the status this week? Are we into still in the highest range? Are we drop down into moderate? Where are we, and what is the things that are going on? So if you can do that, we would appreciate that. I would like to thank, our man of all talents, Chuck Lineberger, and RVTV. This week I was able to go and do some taping for the State of the Schools address. As you know, during this year, they didn't have the normal meeting with the business leaders and chamber that, with the breakfast that we normally have, and we give the state of the county and the state of the schools. And this was really a lot of fun, and it really was showcased, and I look forward to it. We went to 6 schools and Burton and Megatronics, and it was just taping, and it was just fabulous to see. It was pretty grueling, and I had to wear the same suit every day, 3 days. So, Chuck said, don't change suits. So it's now at the cleaners, Chuck. But I went to Fort Lewis and Burlington for the elementary schools, and 2 middle schools, Northside and Hidden Valley, and 2 high schools, Cave Spring and William Byrd. And we all had, it was different themes. And Chuck, my understanding is you'll have it out next week. So we'll have that out, and it'll be on the website. And it was really, RVTV, it'll be on, and those guys were great with the filming. And
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question? Why did we not do it as a joint venture again? We normally do.
I got the call from the chairman, and he told me they were doing their own thing, and we can go ahead and do ours. So he was doing his state of the county, and I actually got a call on the way over here and said, I just saw the state of the county address, and I didn't see y'all behind it. So that was a decision they made to do theirs separately, and we could do ours. So I said, Chuck, and we got to talking and said, why don't we go out to the schools and showcase our schools? So, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I think Chuck may clarify this, but I think it was the chamber's decision to correct? And the county, actually, the county.
It's what?
The county, it was the county.
County did it.
If I may, I'll switch cameras here. There we go. So each year we are invited to the State of the Schools by the county. So the chamber offers the time to the county, and then the county decides. And in many years ago, we were not included in the State of the Schools address, or correction, State of the County address. And in more recent years, the county has allowed us to have some time. And so in this particular case, as Chairman Ray said, the county said that they would like to just do their own separate ways. This actually afforded us actually a great opportunity, because normally for our portion of state of the county, we have, and I would say somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10 to 15 minutes or so. This year's State of the Schools address is a half hour long, so we have much more time to go into much more detail. And of course, with this year and all the things that we are dealing with this year, we had a lot to talk about. So I want to express my great appreciation to Mr. Ray. He was a great trooper as we drug him all around the county, having to wear the same clothes for three days in a row. But he did
Kudos
it.
to keeping Mr. Ray under 30 minutes.
Tell you what.
No, he didn't.
At one school.
He didn't.
We could have had
Thank you.
a half hour.
We were long. It took 3.5 days, so, to do the 30 minutes. So, yes, you're right.
Mr. Ray told me once he can talk to a fence post.
And sometimes they talk back.
Then we got a problem.
Yeah. Also, certainly happy Thanksgiving, and our next school board meeting would fall on Thanksgiving, and I don't think anybody wants to give up the turkey feast and football to come into the meeting, so we have the one meeting scheduled. Our next meeting would be December the 1st, which would be our work session at 3:30. That would be the first Tuesday. And then our next board meeting in December would be December the 10th at 6 o'clock. So that's our schedule for the rest of the year. we can always call special meetings, we can always get together if we need to, so it's not, we're not locked into that. But anyway, I need to say one thing before we quit. We need to go back into closed session for a personnel issue real quickly, gentlemen. I just got that, so if we can, read back into closed session, and we will, anybody that wants to stay around, they can. If not, then we can go, we'll come back out here or in, where we are to close the meeting out. So we're not going to end the meeting right here, so. Just-
I move that the Roanoke County School Board convene in closed session for the following: to discuss ongoing personnel matters under investigation pursuant to the personnel exemption of 2.2-371A1 of the Code of Procedure.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I need just.
Thank you.